Hello and welcome to another episode of North 100, your Canadian Highlander podcast. I'm Serge. Joining me as always, we have Jeremy White, Alex Steacy, and Liam Coughlan. This podcast is brought to you by you over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun.com. And just a reminder for those of you who are in the Loading Ready Run Discord, we now have a Highlander channel, so hit us up on that if you're in the Discord and say hi, try and meet other people to talk to. Starting off, as always, we're going to talk about the best card you're not playing. Up to date, we have Alex.
Howdy do.
Tell me about your secret tech.
Do you like one white removal spells?
Like Swords and Path?
Yeah, those ones are really good.
Okay.
There's a secret one that isn't Condemn.
Okay, all right.
Sunlance?
It's not Sunlance either, which you should always EOT your opponent with.
No, Sunlance is a sorcery.
I know, and it only hits creatures.
Yeah. All right, good talk. All right, what's your secret tech?
It's Harm's Way.
Ooh.
This is one white instant. It reads, the next 2 damage that a source of your choice would deal to you or a permanent you control this turn is dealt to target creature or player instead.
This card is so spicy.
This is just swerve 2 points of damage. And it's like, it's to you or a permanent. So you can use this on planeswalkers, can't you? To like prevent damage on them?
Yes.
Well, so they have to target you and then they would redirect, but you can prevent before they get to do the damage to you.
So there you go. This card can be a sick 2-for-1. At its most basic.
What are you playing this in?
White Weenie, I think like White X aggressive strategies, it's very good in. Because your line you want to do is like you crack in with some guys, they go to blocks, you screw up their blocks and shock one of their low toughness creatures.
Just like ruin their combat
and just get
math.
like 2-for-1s.
I think the other reason this card would be so spicy is it's the sort of combat trick they wouldn't be expecting.
It really is. It also just really screws up combat math generously in your favor.
Sweet.
Especially if they have a first strike creature.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, because you get the first strike damage and remove another thing before it even gets there.
Yeah, I mean, it's even technically a delta of like 4 damage, so it's like you could trade a Piker with a 4/4 if you had to.
Yep.
It's pretty nut.
That's pretty spicy.
It's kind of cool too, the way it's worded means that you can like prevent 2 of the damage a True Name Nemesis would deal. Because it's a source of your choice. It doesn't actually target.
That's true. It only targets the thing that's going to be taking damage.
Yeah, so you can't like target the True Name
preventing.
Nemesis, but you can make it so the True Name Nemesis does less damage.
I mean, like, you could also use it to counter a shock. I don't know if you'd want to, but...
I think I remember getting like a really awkward judge call about this card.
Yeah?
Where somebody's like, Harm's Way, and then the person was like, target? And they're like, what do you mean, target? Because it's the target that takes the damage, not the target that you're preventing the damage to or anything weird like that. And at a competitive tournament, it was really awkward.
Yeah, you kind of...
Trying to be like, how do I explain this without giving play advice?
Yeah.
Want, want.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for your spicy card.
Put it in your deck.
Put it in your deck. All right, let's introduce today's theme. Today, we're going to talk all about combo. In last week's episode, we hinted that we're coming up to, what was our joke? Hashtag combo winter.
Yeah.
So the points change has really opened up combo in the metagame. And then on Friday, we had a Canadian Highlander stream over on the Loading Ready Run Twitch page. And Liam rolled in with Tin Fins, this very spicy Reanimator/Storm hybrid combo deck, and cleaned house. And we figured now would be an excellent time to talk all about combo. What is combo? Why play combo? Is combo healthy? And love it or hate it, we think you need combo in your metagame. And so to start it off, I'm going to get Jared to introduce a very brief introduction as to what combo is like, specifically in a 100-card singleton.
So combo in 100-card singleton is much different than combo in 60-card formats because you just don't get the same sort of consistency with combo pieces because we're 1 of 100 cards as opposed to 4 of 60 cards. So you're just going to see the combo pieces less, which means you either need to have a lot of redundant pieces or have a lot of tutors, is generally what the Canadian Highlander combo decks look like. It also means they're generally a lot less consistent. So,
and it's especially hard to get redundancy if you only have 2 cards that have ever been printed that interact together in a certain way.
Yeah, like a lot of the time there is no redundant piece. Like for Time Vault, there is no redundant Time Vault. Time Vault is the only Time Vault.
Yeah, Grindstone.
Exactly, Painter Servant. Yeah. There's only one. And so interesting you mentioned that, because what you end up doing instead of playing redundant Time Vaults is you play Painter Servant Grindstone instead of another Time Vault and Voltaic Key. So you end up playing redundant combos.
Well, because they have some similarities enough that the tutors that you would be playing or the means of filtering can also hit those.
Exactly, because you're likely playing Trinket Mage, which is good at finding Voltaic Key and Grindstone,
yeah.
and you're likely playing a bunch of the Transmute 2 cards, like Muddle the Mixture, Shred Memory, Demure Infiltrator to find Time Vault anyways, so you already have a bunch of tutors that can find either piece of both combos.
I think this is a good time to introduce that there are a lot of different types of combo. And rather than jump between back and all of them, nice to kind of get a list out. And from the notes we wrote down early, we have sort of classic combo we have written down as like the A plus B, or like the very density one. We have creature combo or sort of like hybrid combo. And I think that sort of hits the main categories we have on that one.
Also, when we say the word combo, generally speaking, we mean like some combination or series of spells that you cast that kills your opponent on one turn.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people talking about like, oh, this is my combo deck. It's like, that is synergy.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't kill your opponent on one turn. It's like, a classic example of this is Thopter Foundry with Sword of the Meek. Because like, it's a combo, sort of, but it doesn't like annihilate your opponent in one turn. It's just really strong synergy.
I'd call Thopter Sword a combo, just because I think a combo can also be something that just sets up the board in such a way that it's like almost impossible for you to lose. The same as like Oath of Druids would or Reanimator would. Technically, you're not winning the game per se, but like if it puts the game state in such a way that it's A, very, very hard for you to lose, and B, very, very easy for you to win.
So it either, like combo, when we talk about it, it either wins the game or massively advantages you in a big hurry. So
something I'd say is like the two ones Liam and I were talking about before the show is Madcap Experiment into Platinum Imperion we'd call a strong synergy. It's like
because it's just like you're paying half as much mana for a spell.
You're getting an 8/8 that reads your life total can't change for 4 instead of 8.
There's lots of board states where Platinum Imperion can't even attack, and it's like not necessarily winning the game.
What
and
is
also
your feeling on Natural Order?
That's
with green creatures.
That's complicated.
Maybe we'll get to that when we get to creature combo.
And the other one I've seen a lot in the past is people calling Aristocrats a combo deck, because you can set up board states where like you're like, sack all my things, deal you 19, didn't have to attack, I gain
30 life, whatever.
20.
You could make the argument that it's like combo or synergy. There's also
I think that's
actual combos.
That's
in there.
more of a synergy based deck that has the opportunity to combo kill. But yeah, we're sort of nitpicking at this point.
Anyway,
I got one question before we move on. Infect, combo or aggro deck?
Combo.
Yeah.
It is.
You win the turn?
Yeah, you win the turn, you do it. You're assembling Infect creature plus pump spell.
Yeah. So I think that's worth bringing up, that combo isn't always this boogeyman. And it can be, and I know a lot of people just love to hate combo. They're just like, it's not fun, it's not interactive, but there's a lot of decks that I don't think you can't play if they don't have combo in it, and a lot of pieces that can be fun, that can be interactive. And then we start talking about the hoof deck, we start talking about this elf ball deck, or Infect, or a lot of these strategies that can end up feeling a lot more like a combo deck. And then when you start breaking it down that way, you're like, oh, I guess I kind of do need these things in my metagame to be kind of fun. Let's go through the different types really quickly before we move too much onto why play combo and jump and stuff like that, and look at like classic A, B versus like density type combo decks.
So classic A plus B is just like, I have this thing and this thing in play and I win. So like Time Key is a perfect example.
Time Vault, Voltaic Key.
Time Vault, Voltaic Key. You take infinite turns by untapping Time Vault as many times as possible. Other ones are like Painter Servant Grindstone. It mills your opponent's library, which is the only instance in Highlander where mill actually works. I get this question all the time. It's like, does mill work in Highlander? I'm like, sort of.
Yeah.
Combo mill works. I think incidental mill absolutely doesn't work.
It's tough.
I think
too slow.
it's way too slow. There's too many cards. There's not enough density of cards to
Of mill thingies.
Because like I feel like mill works fairly okay in like
Modern.
40 card and
Oh, it's nuts.
can work in 60 card, but
It
like
can be nuts and
100.
limited.
I don't think it's going to ever work.
And
Prove me wrong, but
some other notable A plus B combos are Hermit Druid, which is really just A.
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like one card, just like activate.
Oath of Druids is also just A.
Yeah, just
Sort of
one
half
piece
of
combo
a
thing.
lowercase b of your opponent has to have more creatures
Sure,
than you.
yeah, situational A, okay.
And another notable one is Scapeshift. You need to have
Ooh, right.
Scapeshift plus 7 lands.
Yeah.
And your opponent at 18, where you need 8 lands.
Yeah. Oh, right. Your opponent needs to have taken at least some damage to get going there.
And
Okay.
And
How are you
so
going to do that with red?
Yeah, or you hope they fetched like once or twice or something.
Liam, do you want to rattle off some density?
Yeah, so like density-based combo decks are typically more redundant, I guess, is the easiest way, but they're not just killing you with a combination of like 2 cards. It's going to involve casting a lot of spells on one turn, and then ultimately like delivering that into some kind of payoff.
So Storm.
Yeah, so Storm is a
Okay,
density-based
I
combo
understand.
deck. High Tide is a density-based combo deck.
Yeah.
Eggs.
Eggs is a density-based combo deck.
mean, Eggs is kind of
Cradelhoof is
Storm,
a
isn't it?
density-based combo deck.
What was your question? Sorry, Alex, what was your question?
Eggs is kind of like Storm. How does the eggs actually kill you?
A bunch of
Pyrite
ways.
Spellbomb.
Yeah, Pirate Spellbomb, Auroch Salvagers. Sometimes they
Oh,
play.
Bomberman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes they play Tendrils.
We should definitely explain a couple of these things.
We're going over so many. I don't even know if we
Yeah.
can.
Well,
Liam and I have lists for most of these lists we'll talk about, so we'll be able to put most of them
check it out.
in the description.
But to get to your question, you asked earlier about natural order. I actually think that I would classify Cradelhoof, the sort of like the big natural order deck in the format, as a density-based combo deck, not as an A plus B combo deck.
I'd call it hybrid, but
Sure.
it definitely has the opportunity to be.
Yeah.
I think it's way
density-based
more
combo.
density oriented because you
Than
need
A
just
plus B,
a
for
dearth
sure.
of spells in order to win the game. Like, sure, natural order helps, but there's so many ways that you can actually go about finding some way to kill your opponent that I think that
I agree.
It's way more redundant than just like you combine natural order plus creature and then you win.
And so you touched on it, but the main difference between the A plus B decks and the density decks is that the density decks often have many different pieces for their sort of A plus B, and they really just need like a lot of things in play.
Filtering.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry,
they
yeah.
need to do a lot of whatever it is they're trying to do. So like Hoof needs a lot of green creatures in play. Eggs needs a lot of artifacts in play, then Faith's Reward or
Right,
Second
right.
Sunrise. High Tide, you need a bunch of cards in hand and High Tide.
And a bunch of lands in play.
And a bunch of lands
Yeah.
in
You
play.
need some islands.
Storm, you need a bunch of mana in hand and a tutor. It doesn't need to necessarily be a specific thing plus a specific thing.
Right, okay.
And there are some A plus B decks that have a lot of redundant pieces that aren't density based decks, like Reanimator, for example. It just has a lot of options for A plus B.
Right.
You need reanimation
That
spell
fit
plus
well together.
plus
Target.
large creature in the graveyard.
Yeah.
And
Plus
so-
the right large creature, depending on the matchup.
Yeah, and so they often look differently, especially in terms of point spreads. You'll often see density-based decks using their points either on the sort of cornerstone card in their deck if it's pointed, or on cards specifically to find their cornerstone card. Whereas A plus B decks, you often see them as just like a mass of the best tutors.
Yeah. Cool. So next up we have creature-based combo decks. So we talked about classic A plus B plus the density one. So that covered, Painters Urban Time Vault was an A plus B. Density, to recap, is Storm. So your whole deck is just a pile of cards that all work together and they all kind of function as one giant cohesive combo deck. Or Reanimator is kind of like A plus B, kind of density.
it's
It's
sort
kind of
of
weird between the two.
Can fit in both.
So a creature-based combo deck. Now, would you call Kiki Jiki or Splinter Twin a creature-based combo deck or a classic A plus B combo deck?
It's both.
I'd call the Kiki Pod deck a creature combo deck just because the classification denotes that you're able to interact with it with removal spells, which is untrue for most combo decks. Like even like Reanimator, it still blanks most removal spells because most of the removal spells don't kill the thing.
Yeah.
Don't get rid of the
Harm's
thing.
Way is great, but it's
They're-
not killing Bristlebrand.
Yeah, exactly.
If I
Or the worst
found a way
case-
to replicate it like 50 times.
Yeah, if you can't exile the creature, you're just putting it back into the graveyard for the Reanimator deck to reanimate another time.
Yeah,
So
it's not relevant.
yeah.
Exactly. So I'd classify creature combo as interactable with removal. So like,
Well, creature combo also has the added benefit of like if your combo doesn't work out, you can turn them sideways and crack
Plan
into
B.
your
yeah,
opponent.
you sort of have a these decks are often also like creature combo is basically hybrid combo. They're often like hybrid mid-range / combo.
Yeah.
Like they'll usually play a few planeswalkers that are like primarily there to get value. Like you often see Garruk Relentless in the creature combo decks because it's gonna good at like removing something on the other side of the board, and then it's a creature tutor.
I remember in Modern years ago, the blue-red Splinter Twin deck actually just splash green for Goyf.
Yeah, that was
Why not?
that was a version of the deck for sure.
Yeah. And you're like, I'm either going to kill with these Tarmogoyfs that get bigger because I'm playing all these Lightning Bolts and Spell Pierces, or I'm just going to kill you on turn 4 with Splinter Twin Kiki, or not Kiki Jiki,
Pestermite.
Yeah.
It's interesting because that used to be a way that you could play decks in Highlander. Like you used to be able to sort of just play these aggro decks with blue cards that happen to play the Pestermite plus Splinter Twin combo. And increasingly, I think especially the card Splinter Twin has gotten much, much worse in the format. And it's in order to be a creature combo deck, you really have needed to move more towards this mid-range plan. So that's why a deck like Kiki Pod, and the other one is of course the very ubiquitous Sandra Bullock.
Oh, Sandra Bullock. Always a bridesmaid.
Or Pattern Rector, or perhaps the most descriptive definition. This is like the junk Protean Hulk combo deck.
Yeah.
So you're looking to use either Pattern of Rebirth, which is a 3 and a green enchantment, which when you sack it, you get to get a creature from your deck, or when the creature it's attached to dies, you get to go get a creature from your deck. And so this combo is basically get a Pattern of Rebirth on a creature, have a sacrifice outlet in play, and then you get to go nuts with your Protean Hulk.
You need another creature as well.
Yeah. But
Sure, the one that you have the
Rebirth
enchantment attached to. Yeah, exactly. But the reason that those ones work is because the creature plan is so much better than a lot of these sort of like mid-range blue decks that happen to be playing Splinter Twins plan, which were much worse. They just struggled a lot, and so as a result, those kinds of decks have been pushed out of the format in a lot of ways.
So to run through them in our metagame, the ones we classically see that we would classify as creature combo decks would be Hoof.
Or
are you going to call that more
Hoof is sort of
again?
half density, half creature combo.
Yeah.
Because like your single target removal spells aren't necessarily the greatest in Hoof, just because they don't necessarily need a specific creature in play, just a bunch.
You want Pyroclasm to beat the Cradelhoof
But yeah,
deck.
like Wrath of God is really good against Hoof. So like it'll blank some of the removal some of the time. Like Swords and Path are pretty good because like they'll occasionally have some big creatures or some really pesky creatures you want to get rid of. But like a bunch of Lightning Bolts is probably not going to cut it.
Selesnya combo has been seeing a little bit of play recently.
Yeah, this is the Kiki
With the
Pod kind
Vizier,
of deck.
No, not the Kiki Pod version. Like just Selesnya.
Yeah, he's playing Kiki in his deck.
Yeah.
Is he?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hold on, so it's a green-white deck splashing for a red creature?
He doesn't have any red mana. In his
That's
deck.
right, green-white splashing for a
Yeah,
red
It's a green-white deck with no red mana and a Kiki Jiki in it.
Birthing Pod.
Yeah, this is. I actually have to take like some amount of credit for this.
Yeah.
No,
I
I'm
think you were
serious.
the first one who did it.
I am the first person who said this Kiki Jiki combo with Pod and with Survival is really powerful. Why do we need to play red to do it? And so I built both Junk, Pod, and then someone innovated on that and took the black out and just played green-white. But so the reason you can do it, just to very quickly explain, is when you have a Birthing Pod, a 3-drop creature in play, 3 mana and 6 life, you can win the game. If you have Kiki Jiki.
Go on.
So you sacrifice the 3-drop, you get Felidar Guardian.
Okay.
You can Felidar Guardian your pod.
So
you
that
flicker your
untaps the pod,
untap
yeah.
it. Then you sack your Felidar Guardian. Then you get Karmic Guide. With Karmic Guide, you regrow your Felidar Guardian. You flicker the pod again. Then you sack your Felidar Guardian again. You get Kiki Jiki. You copy your Karmic Guide. The Karmic Guide brings back the Felidar Guardian, and then Felidar Guardian.
Untaps Kiki Jiki.
Yeah, Felidar Guardian and Kiki go
Interesting.
infinite. The other reason you do is with Survival of the Fittest, you can do a similar thing where you pitch a card to get Felidar Guardian, pitch Felidar Guardian, find Kiki Jiki, pitch Kiki Jiki, find Karmic Guide, cast Karmic Guide, reanimate Kiki Jiki, copy Karmic Guide, get back Felidar Guardian. So you actually you don't need to cast it in this deck. You're also playing Eldritch Evolution in this deck.
Cool.
You
Yeah,
can sacrifice up into
totally.
Kiki, but
Interesting.
But yeah, no. So yeah, it's good. Sweet idea. It's definitely something people have been doing.
That deck is also able to just play Archangel of Thune and Spike Feeder.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the Devoted Druid Vizier of Remedies combo as well is good in that.
Which is
Yeah.
weird because it's almost not a combo because it's just like Infinite Green is really, really good. Sometimes if you don't have a creature, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, there are a bunch of ways the deck plays to win. Ronus the Indomitable, the new god,
Sorry.
to just
Yeah, what's
makes it-
Ronus the Indomitable?
It's
Also,
a
what's this combo?
Okay.
two and a green for a 5/5. It's indestructible. Has an activated ability. 2 and a green. Another target creature gets +2/+0 and trample until end of turn. So if you have arbitrarily
Infinite
large
mana,
amount
yeah.
of green mana, you just make something arbitrarily large and trample.
Which you can get with this combo we're talking about, which it showed up in Modern, didn't
Yeah,
it?
devote.
It's
Yeah, it's,
Devoted
like, popular
Druid
currently.
and Vizier of Remedies, which
Yeah.
creates infinite green mana.
Yeah,
Because
you just get to untap your Devoted Druid as many times as you want because it doesn't get -1/-1 counters due to
so
Vizier
there's a few
stopping
ways.
it.
Like the classic is pumping it all into Walking Ballista.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
there's
That's another one.
Walking Ballista, and there's also Duskwatch Recruiter to find any card in your deck.
Yeah, that one's good because it finds him.
Yeah.
And like you said, Ronus just pumps infinitely. I think I played this with Pelucranos one time.
Yeah,
Real spicy.
Wow.
it doesn't win that turn, which the
but-
other ones have the advantage of, but
Huh.
yeah.
So those are the creature-based combo decks. Do we have examples of like hybrid combo? So this is sort of the last thing we wanted to talk about, and I mean, I guess sort of the classic example is you're an all-in control deck. You're playing like a very slow control deck, but your main win cons are you might be playing Painter Servant Grindstone as sort of like the
Yeah, you see a little less, like Scapeshift I'd call a hybrid combo deck. It's like you win
your bug your
Same.
your rug ramp. But
same with Time Vault. You don't actually win all your games with Time Vault in most Time Vault decks. You're usually also a pretty strong control deck that just because your combo isn't fast enough, like, or reliable enough,
Sure.
because you only have one Time Vault to like race aggressive decks, so you have to play a lot of interaction in your deck, and you typically want to play counter spells to stop the blue decks that are going to try to counterspell your combo, and so you just have the ability to like control other decks out of the game and just win with Jace or Keranos.
Yeah,
or
like I know Pat Berdusco played Grixis Vault for the first time this last Thursday, and I was like, "Oh yeah, how's it been?" And he was like, "I have won one game with Time Vault." He was 3-0,
Yeah.
and just like had literally won 1 of 6 games with Time Vault. The other 5 he had just won as a control deck.
exactly.
Can I say I don't think there's any way more miserable to lose a game of Magic than to lose to Jace Ultimate. Like Jace the Mind Sculptor Ultimate feels so
It's
bad.
pretty awful.
Because it's also like -13 or something like
12.
that.
-12.
-12. So Jace the Mind Sculptor is a 4-mana Planeswalker that comes in with 3 loyalty. It has a +2 ability that basically fate seals you. So you have to sit there for 8 turns. It's not 8 turns. It feels like an eternity.
Talking about my experience in
It's
Zendikar
5
Standard.
turns, yeah.
Oh yeah,
It was
yeah. But you
excruciating.
just sit there turn after turn when they're like, yeah, you can have that top card. You're like,
It's so humiliating when they look at your top card and they're like, "Yeah, that's fine," and you draw a land or something.
Yeah,
and they're
yeah.
like,
And
okay,
then
let
it's
you have that.
it's
and you're
much
just like,
worse when they like top the card and you draw the card that you thought you needed to win the game. That's the real nightmare,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
They're like,
when they
fate
start
seal you.
leaving spells on top of your deck because they just have like a bunch of
Yeah.
counter spells in hand and your spell isn't uncounterable, so they're just like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. They're like fate sealing you, and you like draw like, I don't know, like Vindicate or something, and you're like, oh, I have this out to Jace, and they let me have it.
So it's also notable that like Scapeshift is another hybrid combo deck. So
Sure.
So I'd also classify basically all creature combo decks as hybrid.
Yeah.
Just because they don't always win the game with a combo.
Do you think any deck that's playing Natural Order is a hybrid combo? Because like I've seen 4-color Blood play Scapeshift for the Dark Depth stage combo.
Natural Order for
Natural Order for Dark Depth
Titan
stage.
to get depth stage.
Yeah, the combo here is you cast Natural Order into any green creature, you get Primeval Titan gets Dark Depths and Thespian Stage in play. So you have a 6/6 trample that can get more lands in play. And also, like, you
Yeah.
have the hammer cocked on making a 20/20
Yeah.
indestructible flyer.
Yeah.
It's a little hard to beat.
Oh, Merit Lash. I mean, we were talking about the back.
She likes
had a bunch of.
bounce spells.
Yeah.
I was just saying, it's interesting. I think there's not really any like super clear indicator as like when a deck starts being a combo deck or starts like being a combo deck versus a hybrid combo deck. Like a lot of decks in Highlander have like incidental I win the game kind of things that just come up. Like that's just good deck building. Right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes you just want to put those sorts of things in. So like I don't know if I would call like a 4-color mid-range deck that just happens to have Titan for depth stage a combo deck or even a hybrid combo deck. It's obviously a very powerful synergy. But it's interesting as to like where you draw the line for that.
Yeah, like even Goblins has a combo win now with Metallic Mimic.
And
I forget what the
Murderous Red Cap.
Yeah.
'Cause it
Metallic
plays-
Mimic, Red Cap, and any sack outlet.
Huh.
Yeah, it's actually the Melira pod
Of goblins?
because you cast Metallic Mimic naming goblins, which
Yeah.
states that.
Doesn't it also make infinite mana because you can have Script Prospector be your sack outlet? Yeah, it does. That's cool.
Yeah, it states that whenever a creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield, it has an extra +1/+1 counter. And,
Cool.
Murderous Red Cap, when it enters the battlefield, it domes your opponent for its power, and it has Persist. And Persist combines with this ability so that it leaves the battlefield, re-enters with a -1/-1 counter and a +1/+1 counter. They both cancel each other out. It enters as a fresh copy, and you can just sack it to, like, Goblin Sledder or Skirt
There's a ton of
Prospector
sack out.
or like.
Yeah,
Goblin Bombardment.
The old Tobogganista.
Yeah,
I had no idea goblins had a combo. That's kind of
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah.
and it's
so-
also just fine to draw on its own.
But yeah, Goblins would probably play it. Goblins plays all these cards anyways, but it's just like happens to have this like 3-card combination in it that wins the game on the spot if they draw it. But Goblins is not a combo deck.
Yeah, I had two notes on that. The first is it can like if you're a white deck and you have a board presence and you cast Ravages, like that game's also kind of over. So sometimes the feel bad of a game of Magic just ending inexplicably can often like people can blame combo being a boogeyman for that, but that can happen in most games of Magic.
Have you ever played against Mono Red?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
just
like-
price a progress you for 14 off the top. You're like, oh, that's too bad.
Blood Moon can have a very similar feel to a lot of games.
Back
And
to
I-
basics.
And I don't know how much time we want to spend talking about it, but like 6-card combo decks, because there's technically an abundance of combos out there. Like there's so many cards in Magic that have so many interactions that come together, but they get a little janky after a while. Like somebody introduced
They
me
generally
to
don't seem to-
this little card called Pilly Pella.
Oh, no.
Makes infinite mana with your
Yeah.
Grand Architect.
Yeah, and so Pilly Palla is this really bizarre scarecrow creature that actually, if you untap it, you add mana. It's not even if you tap it, you add mana. So if you find any way to be able to untap it repeatedly, you can go infinite.
And if you play Grand Architect, you can tap it for artifact mana and then untap it.
Sure.
for
Or
any mana.
if you have a vehicle in play, you can just start crewing your vehicles.
Sure, as a way to as a tap
That's
mechanic over and
spicy.
over. So I thought of, I tried to make a deck, and at the end of it, I was just like, oh, I could just make a Palinchron infinite mana deck, and it'd be like way more reliable. But you see how it goes.
There's many others that exist, but they don't really see too much play because are generally speaking better
And
alternatives.
there are lots of other combos that see play, but we're just going over the main types and some of the like main
Yeah.
decks and combos that fit into those types.
So here's the part I'm excited about, which is why we play combo decks. And I know the reason that I personally play combo decks is it's the only way for a lot of the weirdo archetypes I like to play is to actually win. Like I've tried to play Enchantress in Highlander. Alex is already laughing at me. And Enchantress is the whole weird dirtle archetype where you play do-nothing spells, and you hope in a 100-card inconsistent format to draw an Enchantress, the heart of the deck, which are often these overcosted creatures that if you cast an enchantment, you get to draw a spell. And
Draw a card.
Draw a card, pardon me. And you hopefully get an engine going where you start doing something in a deck that powerfully does nothing.
I mean, you get to draw a spell if you have abundance in play. but-
Sure, yeah. So hopefully, again, like the only way for that deck to reliably win is to combo into something because you get tutors and you've made this enormous pillow fort to hide yourself behind. And often in the type of decks that I like to play, Enchantress, lands, prison, and then some other stuff like that, I end up creating lock pieces that actually make other win cons unviable. So if I'm so busy hitting out the board and making it hostile to creatures, I can't suddenly play like a 6/6 and expect to get there with it. So having an alternate win con is the only way for me to be able to play the strategies that I want to play as a weirdo brewer.
Yeah. For me, the reason I like playing combo decks is that there's like this very interesting like puzzle aspect to the game, and it's like kind of a shame because it like sometimes boils a game of Magic, which is fundamentally supposed to be a game between two players, like into this game that's designed that's just a one-player
I
game.
think you've hit on exactly why people have such a problem with it.
Yeah, but I think those people are wrong. They get to do things. They get to be part of the puzzle that I'm trying to figure out. Like, granted, I can totally understand why it's frustrating when your opponent casts Vampiric Tutor in their upkeep with Tendrils of Agony in their deck, and you're at 1, and for some reason they go find an Entomb and like punt 3 times rather than just killing you. This totally never happened, I promise. But I think like I think that a lot of times people view the sort of like Storm combo decks as like, oh well, now they're just like playing with themselves again. And it's like, well, no, there were like a lot of decisions that got to this turn. They made a lot of choices about what you might do in order to get to that point. So I get like pretty aggravated when people make these sort of like pejorative judgments about people playing Magic this way and call it uninteractive, because it's actually just untrue.
And
right?
especially in 100-card Singleton, there's so many hoops you have to jump through to accomplish your combo in most of these decks, where like you have way more interaction than you think. Like,
yeah.
Taking another recent example, Serge chose not to attack with a Steel Overseer on one of his turns against Liam when Liam was at 15. And if he understood Liam's deck better, the difference between 15 and 14 in that deck is massive. It's 7 cards. 7 cards difference.
I made a similar error. I had
Tap to Caracas.
I had. Well, there was that, but the other error I think I made was I had Aether Violet 2, and I was holding up Aegis of the Gods, and I got to my upkeep, and I was like, do I want to do I want to put this into play and tick it up to play more action? And I did, and then the permanent was on the battlefield vulnerable instead of me holding it for the rest of the game doing almost nothing. And then when he goes to Tendrils me, I just brick him.
I think the other tricky thing on that is I mean, we're getting awfully into stories here, but this is great. But what you've done in that case is you've actually given Liam more information. So he has ways to play around that, but only because he knew it.
He went for a different combo entirely.
Yeah, if he went for Tendrils, you could block it. But in advance, you assumed that was the only way he had, and it turns out he had a plan B, so he killed you with the plan B. And you're like, oh, man.
It's amazing how many ways you can find to die playing a combo deck in Highlander, right? Like, there are so many random cards that you would never even think of that just completely and utterly hose you. I lost to the new Thalia, the 3-mana Thalia, where all your creatures enter the battlefield tapped. Like, I was playing Tin Fins, and like, I was like,
you're
well, like,
brand, and you're like, oh,
it's
I
like,
can't
well,
actually
okay,
attack.
I'll just Emrakul them instead. Oh, that enters tapped as well. Like, you know, like that's why Borborygmos is in my deck now. Like, because I have to be able to kill things like that. But there's like, I don't know, like there's a very interesting puzzle. There's a lot of interaction, and a lot of interaction that you don't even necessarily think of.
I think
which is very cool.
And I know this is tough, but and I'm not always the best at doing this myself. But I think it's important to make a combo player show you they can actually kill you. Because it's amazing how many times you sit there, and if you know they cast Demonic Tutor, you don't just scoop on the spot, and you sit there and they go through it, and they're like, okay, and I do this, and shoot, nope, I counted wrong. I guess I'm just dead here.
It is sometimes like you may not have a lot of interaction, but maybe that interaction is actually just like,
yep,
you lose,
and it falls apart. No, seriously, the one boop and they fall apart.
So, and there's also, you know, we're going to get to like your metagame and like deck building choices as well, because it's like if you expect these sort of things, or if you play the kind of decks that actually prey on combo, then you're going to have a good time.
Yeah.
So.
And yeah, just to touch on Serge's point, making your opponents play out games of Magic in general is just so important. Sometimes, whether they're playing combo or not, sometimes if you just sit there and look not dead, they'll think you're not dead, so they won't kill you.
It's actually true.
You have to use the
Happens a
Jedi
lot.
mind trick on them.
Yeah,
Well,
like if you draw 3 lands, hold them in your hand and just stare them in the eye and
be like,
I've got 3 counter spells. What are you gonna do?
Go to combat. You're like, yep.
they're just like, what does he have? Just start sweating.
Attack with just this creature.
So they go to cast a
Yep, I
spell.
take 2.
You're like, hold on. Land. Resolves.
Well, the one that I run way too often now at this point is like someone casts a spell and like you have no mana up, and you just like take 2 cards from your hand and you like put one of them closer to your exile pile and hold one in your hand, and you're like, no, okay, yeah, that's fine. And the problem is you're bluffing Force of Will, right? That's the idea. And the problem is people know I do this now, so they just assume that it means I'm bluffing.
But then when you have it,
Right, well, then you draw it, right? So I was playing against Pat Frady, and
my
I did this
goodness.
to him, and he even said, like, bluffing Force Will, eh? But, like, it didn't matter, and then I drew it for the next turn. So the next turn he was like, haha, tapped out again. Time to jam into this imaginary Force Will, and I forced him. It was like,
that's how you send somebody to the shadow wall.
There are a bunch of tells that people do. One of my favorite tells watching Magic players go is they draw a card, and then they like immediately look at their graveyard, and you're like, nice Snapcaster.
Mage, eh?
Well, it got a little bit tougher once Delve spells got really prominent in the format, because it could be like Dig Through Time, Treasure Cruise, Tassiger, like all these relevant Delve cards. But for the longest time, 100% that was a Snapcaster they ripped off the top of their deck.
yeah.
Anyway, I think we're getting sidetracked.
Oh my goodness, are we ever?
Yeah.
All right, why do we play combo? I talked about why I love it. Liam talked about why we love it. You guys have any strong opinions on why you play combo decks?
Just sort of elaborating on Liam, that it's like sort of a puzzle. It's also kind of fun to just sit there and have like the bend but not break. This is more for hybrid combo, but you're like getting beat down, you're like sort of half dealing with their stuff while also trying to assemble the way to win the game, and it looks like you're losing the whole game and then you just win out of nowhere. That's really fun to me.
Yeah,
it's like,
that is deeply satisfying.
it's like you're fighting on these two different axes of like, one is like not dying, the other one is trying to assemble your win, and they're like so opposite. You're like Wrath of God, Tutor, like, yeah.
Well, that's like playing High Tide is like that, right? The whole point of High Tide, since you have to get as many lands in play as possible, is all about being like, am I dead this turn?
Can
Probably
I wait
not.
one
Can
more
I
turn?
wait another turn? Yeah, exactly. So it's like, it's really fun to sort of like play that balancing game.
Do you play much combo?
Only a tiny bit. Like
Yeah, you play a lot of synergy-based decks.
Yeah, the extent of combo for me is usually like aristocrats. I think I played that Selesnya deck a little bit. I put I put a really dumb version of Hermit Druid together. That one with Kessig Cage Breakers.
I have no idea what that card is.
With Anger in the bin. Okay, this is the nuttest.
Okay, what is
so my
Kessig
combo
Cage
was
Breaker?
It's a 5-mana 3/4
Yeah,
that
it's-
whenever it attacks, you get a wolf token that's tapped and attacking for each creature card in your graveyard.
It's so great. It dies to any removal, but this is so cool. Okay, so you activate Hermit Druid, you mill your whole library.
Okay.
You dread return Kessig Cage Breakers.
Because of course you do.
You, shut up. You have the card Anger in your
All
graveyard.
right, now what's Anger? Because this is a
Anger,
key
if
part.
you control a mountain, creatures you control have haste.
And it's in your graveyard?
And it's
something
in your
like that?
graveyard. So you just like turn this sideways, you've got a million creatures in your graveyard, and you make like a lethal number of wolves that attack.
Wow.
Alex, was it last episode that Jared and I listed off 6 cards you could reanimate from your graveyard that won the game instantly without combat?
But why without combat when you could have combat?
Right, with
I
combat.
built a different version still that was it was Hermit Druid, but it was Doran Druid, and it would use Angel of Glory's Rise to bring back Zulaport Cutthroat
Okay.
and Cartel Aristocrat
Nice.
And
a bunch of other incidental humans.
Oh
enough,
my God.
Enough to lethal them.
right, so if your opponent has just gained 20 life, you're just dead?
Who gains 20 life in a game of Magic?
You weren't there for the Soul Sisters Day.
No, it was probably because I was playing it.
No,
Yeah.
there was
Oh
something.
no.
Those do sound sweet, though. I mean, why not lose to Fog when you can?
Yeah. It's
Moment's Peace is one of my favorite cards.
You know what? You know what's another great underplayed? Oh man, we're getting into like best card jump lane, but Constant Mists is. I'll bring that up in a best card jump lane sometime.
Picante.
That extra spice. That's just a hint. James is getting ready to furiously type, but
Why play one fog when you could play 50 fogs?
And so getting back to why other people play combos, sometimes people like Liam and I like to play different kinds of decks all the time, and while we may slant to one type of deck than another, we'll play virtually everything. Like I play mono red to 5-color control, 3-color mid-range, 5-color combo. Like, and so I just like doing different things, and so having another thing I can do.
Which I think sort of brings me around to something that I wanted to talk about, because like this, combo is kind of contentious. And
Yep.
It's contentious in the same way that like blue can be.
Point Islands. Get madcap skills out of the
But
meta.
the thing is, and like this is
Madcap
Tell you
something.
what, that
skills
one,
or
not a
experiment,
problem.
whatever,
The
yeah.
one in the red.
Oh right,
plus
yeah. Sorry,
2+0.
madcap experiment. Sorry, Alex, I cut you.
Whether you like it or not, Magic is a big game, and people have different ways of having fun.
Yeah.
And all of them are valid. And it's like if you take steps to squeeze combo out of your format, it's like great for me who hates combo, but like the person who also wants to enjoy Magic is like, well, there's nothing for me in this format. And you're also we'll also get around to why that's unhealthy for your metagame. But it's like it was because I still don't especially care for combo, but I think I understand it better after playing Magic for such a long time.
Well, to add on to your point, yeah, love it or hate it, I think all of us at this table agree. I think you need combo in your metagame for it to be healthy.
Serge, tell us why.
I think we've talked about this a couple times, but if you look at a very, very simple level, if you have a rock, paper, scissors, you need something in there to balance everything out.
Rock, paper, scissors, dynamite.
Yeah, because unfortunately, if you take one piece out of that equation, it kind of skews everything in an unhealthy direction. And that's sort of why I like the points list versus a ban list is we have the ability to do these micro tweaks to strengthen a deck or strengthen an archetype or weaken an archetype depending on what's happening. And even now in our metagame, we back to our hashtag combo winter, we've opened up all the points on these combo decks. And Jared, what were you saying about the metagame on Monday? How many combo decks showed up?
Well, there were 0 copies of Oath of Druids, which was a card we just recently put from 1 to 0.
And that's like a huge change. We sort of expected that would.
I think
and what deck won?
Mono red.
Red deck recall.
Yeah.
Red splashing blue for like 3 cards.
So as you can see, even in these moves to try and open up combo and encourage more people to play combo or to strengthen combo, it hasn't just walked in as this boogeyman and just like, gah, take that format.
To be fair, Red deck recall did beat Time Vault in the semifinals and Kiki Pod in the semifinals and Time Vault in the finals or something like that. There was a bunch of combo.
Other way around.
Sure. There was a bunch of combo, but the people who were playing the combo decks were the people who've been playing the combo decks kind of forever.
Sure.
Like these are people who are really good at playing combo decks, and so the points changing slightly isn't the reason they're all of a sudden winning with these decks.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess they're still not winning yet.
Yeah.
No, it's true.
But again, in a metagame, I think it's important because if all you have is mid-range decks, then it's very easy to make a control deck that just preys on mid-range decks. And then all of a sudden you're like, well,
format gets solved.
Yeah, and that's tough. You never want to solve format because then, well, it's a little bit trickier in Highlander because the inherent inconsistency in a deck, but the ability to just like, in standard, you're playing one of like the 3 winning decks or you're not.
Yeah.
And that's kind of tough. And I like that. I like that we have the ability to tweak it. I like that we have a format where you have all this variety and we want to keep those options open so that you don't just...
Well, it's like, do you guys think that the lack of combo in Germanlander is why there's so much 4-color blood?
Yes.
I mean, it was.
I think so.
They've recently made a couple changes that I think are going to make combo a little better. They unbanned Entomb in particular.
So just to
Right,
go over,
Explain this.
there are other versions of Highlander. We play Canadian Highlander at North 100. I hope that makes sense. To my knowledge, there are 2 other variants of Highlander out there that might even predate our format. One is No, you disagree.
I'm not certain, but
When I started playing Canadian Highlander, I actually took a lot of inspiration from those lists when we got started.
So did I.
There is one version which is Australian Highlander. It is 60 card. And it has a points list that's pretty different from ours, and we both think the other people are crazy for how.
And they
but the
also
format-
have sideboards.
they have sideboards. Our formats are so different.
Yeah,
like
but-
theirs is more consistent. They have sideboards, so like,
Yeah.
Interesting.
the points lists are different for very reasonable reasons.
And the other one is Germanlander. It's funny calling them by the regions, but I digress. Germanlander is a 100-card singleton, but they have a banned list, so they find problematic
you
cards
cannot play these
and
cards.
completely remove them. And it's interesting to see what their metagames look like, what decks are powerful, what decks are struggling, as a result of the choices they've made.
Weirdly, it turns out that like 4-color mid-range is like the king deck to play. It's like
In
at least
German Highlander?
previously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In years past that I used to look at a lot of lists,
Yeah.
it was just like 4-color blood, 4-color blood, 4-color
Yeah,
blood.
not to go off on too much of a tangent, but actually recently it's been like blue-red, like control and mono-red have sort of been the two kings of that format.
Interesting. I mean, they're also really good in our format.
And they're-
Turns
but
out
they're-
those decks are great.
Yeah, those decks are really good against 4-color mid-range, right? That's the thing, right? The
It's like,
metagame
blood
adapted.
moon, you lose.
Yeah, people realize that if you're going to play 0 basic lands in your deck,
Oh my
this
goodness.
Blood Moon and Price of Progress card are probably pretty good against
Yeah.
you.
Yes.
But but I don't want to say too much about their formats because frankly, none of us have played a single game of any of them.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to start making judgments about how their formats run or anything or exactly how their format
Totally fair.
goes.
There's
without
enough room in the game
supposing
for
that
everyone.
I know.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
They love their formats. We love ours. It's awesome.
So that was basically the major notes. Anybody have any finishing thoughts on combo before we start going into our end segments?
Well, I would like to talk a little bit more about the metagame, if that's okay.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
I think it's important to sort of like note where combo fits into the metagame
Yeah.
and why
Yeah.
it not being there is important. So you touched on it. It's good against mid-range, combo is.
Okay.
The other thing that combo is good against is can be pretty reasonable against control decks, actually, because they're too slow. They don't have a clock.
Well, it also depends what a control deck is controlling. If it's geared
Yeah.
towards like Wraths don't do much against certain
Yeah.
combo decks. So
Like, can you beat 50 counter spells?
Yes. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. Because you have infinite time, right? Like,
And there are cards that are very good at beating 50 counter spells at once. Like you have access to cards like
Silence.
Defense Grid, Silence, City of Solitude.
Orange
Just like
Chant, yeah.
even just the discard spells can be pretty potent.
Yeah.
And the big thing is pressure. That's actually what's more important for
Yeah.
beating a combo deck than control. Like eventually the combo deck is gonna, if the player is talented, they're going to put together a hand that even a hand of 2 or 3 counter spells can't beat. But one thing that I had noted about the format in particular lately is that tempo strategies were super out of the metagame. It was really hard to play them, and the reason that this is because when there's really only like control, aggro, and mid-range, tempo has like a reasonable matchup against some of the mid-range decks and a reasonable matchup against some of them, some of the control decks. It's like 50-50, maybe a little worse than that. But they're awful against the aggro decks, and when there's no combo, well, then tempo also disappears. So you've already eliminated 2 archetypes when one of them goes away. Because tempo wants to prey on combo, it wants to beat those kinds of decks. But when the number 1 decks that they beat go away, well, all of a sudden there's no longer a reason to play it. It's like an ecosystem, right? And so it's really important to make sure that you understand how the various archetypes are interrelated, because oftentimes one being unplayable actually makes more than one archetype not playable, which is, I think, really worth mentioning.
No, that's a great point. Thanks for, yeah.
it was the same reason that maybe a year and a half ago or 2 years ago we saw almost nobody playing aggro, and then
That's weird.
we also saw almost nobody playing control, because control
Yeah.
is the deck to play against the aggro decks.
Yeah, you shouldn't play control in a format full of mid-range, because mid-range decks are good against you.
Yep.
And you shouldn't play aggro in a format full of mid-range.
Yep. So I guess like a suggestion I could make, if you can manage it, is like try playing combo. You may end up with the same opinion after the fact. It was just like, it's like I tried combo and I still hate it. But
now I
you might be
understand it.
like, oh, okay, it's not invincible, or I get this now.
Yeah, or even just try to understand why the person is playing the combo deck.
Yeah,
It's not because they hate you.
Yeah, if for no other reason, you might get better insight in how to beat
Yeah,
combo.
definitely.
If you
definitely.
really hate it.
That's the number one way to learn how to
Be
beat
like,
decks is to play
it's
them.
like, this is a shack made of straw. I just have one strong breeze and the whole thing comes down.
Well, like all of a
that's
sudden you
often
can
how
start
it
to
works.
identify, like, you can see how much mana they have, and if you've played the deck, you know what that amount of mana might constrain you to doing, right? Like you can
Or
start
in
to understand.
other certain decks, life total, like
Yeah.
Birthing Pod and Tin Fins both have like very strict like life total
you know what
requirements
we're
for
actually
their
talking about?
main
We're
ways to
talking
win.
about interaction on a much more subtle scale.
Oh,
We
yeah.
are.
Where it's like counting numbers that you generally take for granted, like you said, like mana count and life total count and stuff like that. Which, if you understand the deck, then you may better be able to
especially
beat it.
especially in our format, I think people misplay against combo easily the most out of any other archetype.
That's tough if they don't know, right?
Yeah, if they're playing blue, they'll often from turn 2 onwards hold up a counterspell for the rest of the game. Their plan is like, all right, got counterspells up. I'm going to play a threat on turn 5, still have counterspell up. We're good. When in fact, that's just giving the combo deck too much time to set up.
Interesting.
And
Just want to jam a threat as soon as possible.
there's a chance you'll die if you tap out on turn 2 or turn 3, but
It's statistically unlikely.
statistically unlikely.
Unless Liam nut
Unless
draws you.
Liam just kills me on turn 2.
Sometimes you
but
just
whatever.
died in good draws, no matter what the deck is.
Yeah.
That was like the 1% draw.
Yeah.
But you're much more likely to die if you wait to play your threat till turn 5. They're like looking down, have 7 cards in hand, still at 20 life. They're like,
I got
yeah,
this. Yeah.
I got 10 more turns. We're good.
Thundermaw Hellkite.
Jared and I played a
Ooh.
really funny game where I was playing a control deck and he was playing High Tide, and that matchup is classically very bad for control because High Tide wants just to let the game go long. And in game 1, I just like slammed a thing in the ice on turn 2, and Jared was like, haha, that's not going to bounce anything, but you didn't know what I was on. And I was there being like, holy crap, I'm so happy I have my only 2-drop threat in my deck. I might actually get to attack before turn 7.
Yeah.
And like, I won that game. I lost the match, but I did win that game, and it was because I got to apply pressure early and not never.
All right, let's go back to our conclusions. Anything else to say about combo in general before we do stuff? All right, cool. Let's move on to Powerful Magic. Up today is me. And today for the Powerful Magic segment, I want to talk about 2 times that I actually goozled combo, which feels pretty good.
Hey, Serge, for those following at home, what does goozling mean?
Goozle is maybe a,
You screwed them.
yeah. I mean, I'm trying
Wamboozled.
to Wamboozle. There you go.
You got them.
Got
know,
them, but good.
They thought they got me, but instead I got them. Kind of like the Kansas City Shuffle. I'm just making things up now.
I think it's close to the Tennessee Swiss tie.
Oh my goodness. All right. So in the first game, my opponent had assembled Painter, Servant, and Grindstone. And normally at this board state, I think I'm pretty dead. And I got kind of lucky. They actually activated Painter, Servant, Grindstone on their turn instead of mine. So normally what you do is you activate it on their end step. You wait a half a turn because it reduces the amount of time they have. So they cast it. They had 3 mana, tapped out, activated Grindstone to kill me, and I cast Stifle. Stifle is a 1 mana blue instant that says counter target activated ability. And they're like, oh. And they're like, well, that was kind of lucky. And then they pass to me on my draw step. I draw a card. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I pass back to them.
Holding
And
the
they're like,
suspense.
they like untap, draw, and they're like, activate Grindstone, kill you. And I'm like, I cast the Snapcaster Mage that I drew off the top of my deck and cast the Stifle for a second time. And they're just sitting there and they're just like sweating. And they're like, unlikely, pass back to me.
Oh no.
I draw another card off the top of my deck. I'm just like, Swords to Plowshare, your Painter Servant? And they're just like,
Go to sleep.
ah!
How
And-
could
and-
I be defeated in this way?
and it's just in that way that I got 2 extra draws, and I mean there were nut draws off the top, but that was really quite something. And the second time, and I may have actually told this story already, but I love this story, was against Storm, and I'm on my workshop affinity list, so I'm on uninteractive aggro low drop artifact creatures, and I have an Aether Vial in play, and the Aether Vial is at 2, and the opponent is just like, okay, make 1,000,000 mana, tutor, everything, all like that. And finally, the very last mana they cast was Demonic Tutor. And they're like, I'm out of mana, Demonic Tutor, get Black Lotus. Cast Black Lotus, and I'm like, I have an effect, activate Aether Vial, and I flashed in Phyrexian Revoker, which is a 2-mana artifact creature for a 2/1, and it says, name a card, activated abilities of that card can't be activated.
This one's better than Pithing Needle against the old Black Lotus, eh?
Yeah, and I named Black Lotus, and they had no mana. Storm was at like 10, and they needed that to go through everything again to actually kill me, and they're just like, I'm just dead here.
Revoker's a really amazing card.
It is.
It can't hit lands, which is a drawback, but it can hit mana abilities of like artifacts and so forth.
Creatures.
So like, yeah, and creatures. So you can name elves, you can name Soul Ring, you can name Mana Crypt,
Yeah.
all that stuff, and like that can be
You can
pretty
name
big.
Kiki Jiki, Walking Ballista.
Yeah, but that was
Also,
that
it
was
attacks for 2.
But that was like the one interaction I had in my entire deck. The only way I had to interact with this deck that was one move away from killing me. And like Alex was saying before, just that little boop, and then the whole thing crumbles. They had no mana floating. They had everything available to them. They were mid killing me, and I had the one interaction to just to goozle them, as we were saying before.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how many times you're like looking at like a combo player's like combo term where you're like, wow, Mana Tithe just beats you, eh? You just can't beat
I
that
gotta
one,
jam
can
that in
you?
my deck. I actually gotta do that.
Sometimes, man.
Sometimes you're just like,
Sometimes the
Mana-
House of Cards is real fragile.
It's like
Yeah.
it's just like I have exactly enough mana. Oh, I die. Oh, I died. I died to a one.
Combo
mana
decks
counterspell.
in Highlander especially are definitely the straw house. They are not the brick house.
They're glass cannons.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can get you real good, but they're real fragile.
Yeah.
So that's our episode about combo today. We know they're scary, we know they're unpopular, but we'd argue that we like them, and hopefully now that you understand how broad of a subject combo can be, you won't just write off a whole archetype on that sort of thing.
Or at the very least, be better armed to
Battle
defeat
them.
it, to
Yes.
battle them.
Yeah. Make sure you learn what you hate so you can defeat it. I just want to say thank you for watching. Thank you for the support. We couldn't do this without you, especially over at the Patreon at patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. Another reminder, we do have the Loading Ready Run Discord.
Got it.
Discard.
The Loading Ready Run
Another
discard.
way to kill combo deck. The Loading Ready Run Discard. There's a Highlander channel in there now, so if you're looking for people to play or to talk to about the format, get in there. We'd appreciate that. So thank you again. Thank you to my co-hosts, and we'll see you next time.